2 weeks into what was supposed to be a 3-day invasion, the Crimson Fang had effectively become a taxi service. Commander Zexithara watched from the bridge as another shuttle departed for Earth's surface, carrying warriors who had traded their weapons for art supplies and musical instruments that the human children had requested. The transformation was unprecedented. Her crew had gone from galaxy-conquering predators to what the humans called volunteers in their educational system. War Chief Korthak now spent his days helping with something called story time, where he would read tales of adventure to groups of fascinated children who hung on his every word. His voice, once used to strike terror into enemy hearts, had become gentle and animated as he acted out different characters. "Commander," Dr. Hextania announced, approaching with her daily psychological assessment reports, "we have a significant development. The humans have begun requesting specific services from our warriors." Zexithara accepted the datapad with growing dread. "What kind of services?" "Educational assistance. Apparently, War Chief Korthak's knowledge of stellar navigation has proven invaluable for their science class. The younglings are learning about space travel and stellar cartography from someone who has actually traveled between stars." The report continued with increasingly surreal details. Sub-Chief Vorthak had become a playground monitor, using his predatory senses to ensure the safety of children during their recreational activities. His ability to detect potential dangers from vast distances made him incredibly popular with the human adults, who had started referring to him as the best babysitter ever. The Grimlock Beetle Warriors, with their natural armored exoskeletons, had become living jungle gyms. Children climbed all over them during something called recess, treating the galaxy's most feared assault troops like elaborate playground equipment. "There's more," Dr. Hexitania continued. "The humans have started sending our warriors home with what they call homework, assignments to learn about human culture, history, and social customs." Zexithara stared at the datapad in disbelief. "Our warriors are doing homework?" With enthusiasm that borders on obsession, Scout leader Zexamora has been staying up late studying human literature because her assigned youngling wants to discuss something called Harry Potter. Apparently, the child believes Zexamora would make an excellent Hufflepuff, whatever that means. The situation had moved far beyond military disaster into something approaching cultural revolution. Her warriors weren't just being neutralized. They were being recruited into human society. "Commander," interrupted the communications officer, "urgent transmission from the Galactic Predator Council." The viewscreen activated to show the intimidating figure of Supreme War Master Gorthax, his multiple eyes glowing with barely contained fury. Behind him stood representatives from 6 different predator species, all looking equally enraged. "Commander Zexithara," Gorthax growled, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power, "explain why your fleet has been in orbit around this primitive planet for 2 weeks without achieving conquest." Zexithara felt her bioluminescent patterns shift nervously. How could she possibly explain that her warriors had been defeated by finger painting and playground games? "Supreme War Master, the situation is complex. The humans possess defensive capabilities that we did not anticipate." "What kind of capabilities?" "Advanced weapons? Shield technology? Psionic defenses?" "They have children, sir." The silence that followed was deafening. Supreme War Master Gorthax's expression shifted through confusion, disbelief, and finally, cold fury. "Did you just tell me that the galaxy's most elite invasion force has been stopped by younglings?" Before Zexthara could respond, another voice interrupted from off-screen. "Supreme War Master," came the panicked voice of Commander Veltash from the Venom Strike battle group. "Emergency transmission from the Proxima Colony assault." The viewscreen split to show another Zephyrian commander, his normally composed demeanor completely shattered. "Sir, we've encountered the same phenomenon here. The human younglings. They've organized something called a welcome party for our arrival. They made banners with our names on them, in glitter." Supreme War Master Gorthax's eyes widened in horror. "How many fleets have reported similar incidents?" 7 confirmed, sir. "The human younglings appear to have some form of instantaneous communication system. They somehow knew we were coming and prepared activities." The scope of the disaster was becoming clear. Across the galaxy, every human settlement was implementing the same strategy. Children were systematically neutralizing predator species through organized friendship campaigns. Furthermore, Commander Veltash continued, his voice breaking, The younglings have started asking about our home planets. They want to send pen pal letters to Zephyrian children. They assume we have younglings of our own who might want to be friends. This revelation hit Zexthara like a physical blow. The human children weren't just neutralizing invasion forces. They were attempting to establish diplomatic relationships with entire species through playground diplomacy. "Sir," came another transmission, this one from the Rim territories. "Commander Kexthor reporting from the Tau Ceti incursion. The human younglings they've adopted our warriors. Literally. They've convinced their adult caretakers to initiate formal adoption procedures. Legal documentation is being prepared." Supreme War Master Gorthax's bioluminescent patterns flickered erratically as the full scope of the crisis became apparent. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were systematically converting galactic predators into family members. "Emergency session of the Predator Council," Gorthax declared. "All invasion fleets are to maintain current positions pending new orders. And someone find out how the humans are coordinating this response across multiple star systems." As the transmission ended, Zexthara realized that the true scope of human capabilities was only now becoming apparent. This wasn't random kindness or cultural coincidence. The humans had somehow developed a species-wide strategy for neutralizing predator threats through emotional manipulation disguised as innocent childhood behavior. "Commander," War Chief Gorthax's voice came over the internal comm, "requesting permission to attend Emma's birthday celebration. She specifically requested that I help with the games, and I cannot disappoint her on such an important day." "What kind of games?" Zexthara asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Pin the tail on the donkey, musical chairs, and something called a piñata that involves striking a colorful container until it releases candy. The younglings have prepared a special crown for me to wear during the festivities." Looking around the bridge, Zexthara saw her crew watching expectantly. They all wanted to attend the birthday party. The galaxy's most feared warriors had been reduced to party guests, and they were happy about it. The most terrifying realization was that the humans had accomplished something no military force in galactic history had ever achieved. They had made their enemies want to surrender. Not through force or threat, but through genuine affection and the simple desire not to disappoint a child who had drawn them a picture and saved them a piece of cake. As another shuttle prepared to depart for the planet's surface, carrying warriors with wrapped presents and handmade cards, Commander Zexthara wondered if this was how peace actually happened. Not through treaties or negotiations, but through birthday parties and friendship bracelets, one converted predator at a time. The emergency session of the Galactic Predator Council convened in the neutral space of the Omega Station, a massive military facility that had never before witnessed such confusion among its warrior occupants. Supreme War Master Gorthax stood before a holographic display, showing tactical positions across 17 star systems, each marked with the same humiliating status: invasion force culturally compromised. Representatives from every major predator species filled the war room. The Vextorians, masters of phase warfare, sat in sullen silence. The Grimlock beetles, whose exoskeletons had never been breached in battle, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even the dreaded Shadowmaw pack hunters, who could become invisible at will, seemed somehow diminished. "Status report," Gorthax commanded, his voice cutting through the uncomfortable atmosphere. Admiral Thexavara of the Vexatorian fleet stepped forward, her normally proud stance replaced by something approaching shame. "Supreme War Master, the human younglings have somehow learned to counter our phase abilities. They play what they call peekaboo games that seem specifically designed to interact with our dimensional shifting." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Peekaboo was apparently a human game where participants would hide and then reveal themselves, creating anticipation and joy in young children. "Every time one of my warriors attempts to phase into their invisible state," Admiral Thexvara continued, "the younglings become excited and begin actively searching for them. They treat our advanced stealth technology as a form of entertainment. When we reappear, they celebrate with something called clapping and demand we do it again." General Mordek of the Grimlock Beetles stood next, his massive frame trembling with an emotion none had ever seen in their species: embarrassment. "The human younglings have weaponized our natural armor plating. They climb on us during what they call jungle gym time, treating our battle-hardened carapaces as recreational equipment. Worse, they've started decorating us with colorful adhesive shapes during craft time. He activated a personal hologram showing himself covered in bright stickers shaped like flowers, stars, and something called smiley faces, while tiny humans climbed across his back like he was a living playground structure. My warriors report feeling protective of the younglings when they engage in these activities. Our natural defensive instincts have been subverted into guardian behaviors. Pack leader Shadox of the Shadowmaw Hunters spoke next, his usually commanding presence reduced to a confused whisper. The human younglings have learned to play what they call hide and seek, in a way that neutralizes our hunting abilities. Instead of fleeing when we stalk them, they actively participate in the hunt as if it were recreational. They giggle while hiding, making them easy to find, and when discovered, they express joy rather than fear. The revelations continued for hours. Every predator species had encountered the same phenomenon. Human children were systematically converting galactic conquest forces into voluntary childcare providers through nothing more than games, crafts, and snack sharing. How are they coordinating this response? Supreme War Master Gorthax demanded. Our intelligence suggests these human settlements have no faster-than-light communication capabilities. Dr. Zethara, the Council's chief behavioral analyst, stepped forward with a data compilation that had taken weeks to prepare. Supreme War Master, our analysis suggests that the humans aren't coordinating their response at all. What we're witnessing appears to be instinctive, behavior programmed into their younglings through evolutionary pressure. She activated a holographic display, showing human evolutionary development over millions of years. Humans, evolved on a planet filled with apex predators. Their survival strategy wasn't to become stronger or faster than their threats. Instead, they developed the ability to form emotional bonds with potential predators, converting them from threats into protectors. The implications were staggering. Every predator species in the galaxy had fallen victim to an evolutionary strategy that had been millions of years in development. The human younglings aren't using advanced technology or coordinated tactics, Dr. Zethara continued. They're simply being human children. Their natural behavior patterns have evolved specifically to neutralize predator species through emotional manipulation, disguised as play. Then how do we counter this strategy? Gorthax asked, though his voice suggested he already feared the answer. Sir, I don't believe we can. The human children aren't doing anything that can be classified as hostile action. They're playing games, sharing food, and expressing affection. Our warrior codes prevent us from harming younglings, and our psychological makeup makes us vulnerable to the protective instincts they trigger. Admiral Thexvara spoke up from the floor. Sir, there's another factor to consider. Our warriors don't want to be cured of this condition. They're requesting permanent assignment to human worlds. This was the most disturbing revelation yet. The human children hadn't just neutralized galactic predators. They had made them happy about it. Furthermore, General Mordek added, the human adults have begun formal diplomatic outreach. They're proposing cultural exchange programs, educational partnerships, and something called Big Brother mentorship initiatives. Supreme War Master Gorthax stared at the tactical display, watching as more invasion forces reported the same status updates. Across the galaxy, the most feared military might in known space was being systematically converted into an intergalactic childcare service. What are our options? He asked finally. Dr. Zethara consulted her datapad. We could withdraw all forces and classify human space as restricted territory. We could attempt to negotiate formal treaties recognizing their defensive capabilities or what? We could accept their invitation to join what they call the galactic community. The humans have proposed establishing formal diplomatic relationships based on mutual cultural exchange, rather than conquest. The war room fell silent as the full implications sank in. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were offering an alternative to the endless cycle of conquest that had defined galactic civilization for millennia. Sir, came a transmission from Commander Zex Thera still orbiting Earth. Urgent message from the planet's surface. The view screen activated to show the now familiar sight of human children gathered in their educational facility. But this time, they had been joined by warriors from multiple species, all of whom were wearing colorful party hats and appeared to be participating in some sort of celebration. The little girl with pigtails stepped forward, flanked by War Chief Korthak, who was holding what appeared to be a primitive musical instrument. "Hello, important space people," she called out cheerfully. "We heard you were having a big meeting about us. We wanted to invite you to our friendship festival. We've been learning songs from all our space friends' home planets." What followed was perhaps the most surreal moment in military history. A chorus of human children and galactic predators, singing traditional war chants that had been converted into cheerful playground songs as the transmission ended with children and warriors waving enthusiastically at the screen. Supreme War Master Gorthax realized that the age of galactic conquest was over, not because of superior firepower or advanced technology, but because a species had evolved that could turn enemies into friends with nothing more than innocent affection and an invitation to play. The most terrifying part was that he found himself wondering what it would be like to attend one of their friendship festivals. 6 months later, the Omega Station had been transformed into something unrecognizable. Where once the walls had displayed battle honors and conquest trophies, they now showcased children's artwork from across the galaxy. Colorful drawings of alien warriors playing games with human children covered every surface, and the cafeteria served what was optimistically called interspecies-friendly snacks. Supreme War Master Gorthax stood in what had once been the strategic planning room, now converted into something the humans called a cultural exchange center. Before him lay the documents that would formally end the age of galactic predation, the Universal Friendship Accords, as the human children had insisted on naming them. The transformation hadn't been immediate or easy. There had been holdout factions among the predator species who insisted that conquest was their natural right. But one by one, even the most militant war chiefs had fallen victim to humanity's most devastating weapon. Children who drew pictures of them and asked if they wanted to be friends. Commander Zexthera entered the room. Her appearance dramatically changed from the fearsome warrior who had first approached Earth. She now wore what humans called a friendship bracelet, made by Emma, the little girl with pigtails who had started it all. More shocking still, she was smiling. "The final reports are in," she announced, placing a datapad on the table. "Every major predator fleet in the galaxy has formally requested reassignment to human worlds for cultural exchange purposes." The statistics were unprecedented. The Zephyrian Empire, which had conquered 17 star systems through military might, had voluntarily disbanded their invasion forces in favor of what they called educational support services. The Vextorians had converted their phase warfare technology into elaborate playground equipment that could materialize and dematerialize on command, delighting human children who treated it like the universe's most advanced toy set. "What about the Shadow Maw pack hunters?" Gorthax asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "They've established something called Camp Shadow Maw on New Terra Colony. They use their stealth abilities to play elaborate hide-and-seek games with human children. Pack leader Shadowx reports that it's the most fulfilling work he's ever done. Through the viewing portal, Gorthax could see the strangest sight in galactic military history. Warriors from a dozen different species participating in what humans called recess, with visiting children from various colonies. The Grimlock beetles had become living jungle gyms, their armor plating carefully padded to ensure child safety. Vextorian warriors phased in and out of reality while children squealed with delight. Even the most feared Zephyrian war chiefs were gently pushing youngsters on primitive oscillating devices called swings. "Sir," Commander Zexthera continued, "there's something else. The humans have made a proposal that the Council needs to consider." She activated a holographic display showing a transmission from Earth. Dr. Sarah Chen, the human psychologist who had first formalized the cultural exchange program, appeared alongside several other adult humans and a representative group of children. "Greetings. Supreme War Master," Dr. Chen began, her tone respectful but confident. "We've been observing the positive changes in your warriors since they began working with our children. We believe we can help other species throughout the galaxy experience the same transformation." The little girl with pigtails stepped forward, now wearing a small badge that identified her as Chief Cultural Ambassador Emma. "We want to start a big friendship program for the whole galaxy," she announced with infectious enthusiasm. "We can teach everyone how to play games and share snacks and make friends instead of fighting." Dr. Chen nodded. "We're proposing the establishment of galactic friendship centers on key worlds throughout known space. Human families would volunteer to relocate and establish educational facilities staffed by your reformed warriors. Instead of conquest, we could spread cooperation. The proposal was simultaneously brilliant and terrifying. The humans weren't content with merely defending themselves. They wanted to convert the entire galaxy to their philosophy of friendship and cooperation. The success rate has been 100%, Dr. Chen continued. Every predator species that has encountered our children has undergone the same peaceful transformation. We believe this approach could end galactic warfare permanently. War Chief Korthak appeared in the transmission, standing behind Emma with a posture that had completely lost its military bearing. He now looked like what humans called a proud uncle. Supreme War Master, he said, his voice carrying none of its former intimidation. I have experienced more honor in protecting these younglings than I ever found in conquest. The humans offer us something we never knew we wanted. Purpose that creates rather than destroys. The transmission ended with the children singing a song they had composed about friendship between different species, their voices joined by a chorus of reformed galactic predators who had learned the words phonetically. Korthak stared at the blank screen, contemplating the most fundamental shift in galactic civilization since the development of faster-than-light travel. The humans had offered them something unprecedented, an alternative to endless war. What does the Council recommend? He asked finally. Commander Zexithara smiled, an expression that would have been impossible for a Zephyrian warrior just months earlier. Sir, the Council unanimously votes to accept the human proposal, with one condition, which is, we want to formally adopt the human naming system for our new organization. Instead of the Galactic Predator Council, we'll become the Galactic Friendship Council. The humans insisted on it, and honestly, none of us had the heart to disappoint the children. Looking around the transformed station, watching warriors who had once struck fear throughout the galaxy, now carefully crafting art projects with visiting human children, Korthax realized that this was probably the most successful invasion in galactic history. The humans had conquered them all, not through superior firepower, but through something far more powerful, the simple desire to make friends. He picked up the Universal Friendship Accords, noting that the official document had been decorated with glitter and stickers by the human children, who had insisted on helping with the final draft. Very well, he said, signing his name next to a drawing of himself playing tag with a group of younglings. Let it be recorded that on this day the age of galactic conquest ended, not with the destruction of our enemies, but with their invitation to play. Outside the viewing portal, the sound of laughter echoed through the corridors of what had once been the galaxy's most feared military installation. Children's voices mixed with the gentle growls and clicking sounds of reformed predators, creating a symphony of friendship that would soon spread to every corner of known space. The galaxy's greatest predators had learned to fear human children, not because they were dangerous, but because they possessed something even more terrifying than any weapon: the power to make anyone want to be a better person. And in the end, that fear had transformed the universe itself, one friendship bracelet at a time. The Galactic Council's emergency session had been called for the third time this cycle, and Ambassador Zexhai could feel the fear radiating from every species present. The massive chamber, designed to accommodate beings from 1,000 different worlds, buzzed with nervous energy as holograms flickered and translation devices worked overtime. The humans have done it again, announced Prime Counselor Vorthak, his 6 eyes blinking in rapid succession, a clear sign of distress among his people. Another trade vessel has been completely stripped of its cargo, crew left unharmed but terrified beyond measure. A murmur of understanding rippled through the assembly. Everyone knew what this meant. The humans had sent their most feared weapon into action once more, their young. Ambassador Zexhai, representing the Kethmore Empire, rose from his crystalline perch. His species had been warriors for millennia, conquerors of 17 star systems, yet even they had learned to give human settlements a wide berth. Honored Council, we must address the elephant in the room. He paused, using one of the strange human expressions that had somehow entered galactic common speak. These are not trained soldiers or seasoned mercenaries. These are their children. The silence that followed was deafening. Every being in that chamber had heard the stories, but speaking them aloud somehow made them more terrifying. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Yathara, her tentacles writhing nervously, We should review the latest incident reports. The central hologram shifted, displaying the cargo vessel Prosperity's Dream. Captain Jorvek of the Altarian fleet appeared, his normally steady voice shaking as he recounted his experience. We were 3 parsecs outside the Terran protected zone when they appeared. Jorvek's image flickered. At first, our sensors detected only a small craft, barely larger than an escape pod. We assumed it was a distress signal. The recording continued as the captain described what happened next. A single small vessel had approached their massive cargo hauler. When they'd opened communications, expecting to find stranded adults, they were greeted instead by the faces of 3 human children, none appearing older than 12 Terran years. The smallest one, she couldn't have been more than 8 standard years old, spoke in that innocent voice they all have, Jorvik continued. She said they were on a treasure hunt and wondered if we had any shinies we could spare. Ambassador Zexhai had read this report 17 times, and it still sent chills down his chitinous spine. What followed was a masterclass in psychological warfare that no military academy in the galaxy could have devised. The children had boarded the vessel, somehow bypassing security systems that could withstand quantum pirates and void sharks. They moved through the ship with curiosity that seemed innocent, but was devastatingly effective. The oldest child, a boy with freckles and missing front teeth, had complimented the ship's design while casually disabling the main defense grid to see how it worked. The girl had wandered into the cargo bay, her eyes lighting up with wonder at the precious metals and rare crystals stored there. She began asking questions, innocent questions about what each item was, where it came from, what it was used for. When crew members tried to redirect her away from the most valuable cargo, she would simply smile and say she was just looking. Meanwhile, the third child, barely 10 years old, had somehow found his way to the bridge. He sat in the captain's chair, pressing random buttons while asking if he could help drive the spaceship. Each button he pressed seemed random, but within minutes he had somehow accessed the ship's entire manifest trade routes. And cargo manifest. We couldn't stop them. Captain Jorvek's voice cracked in the recording. They weren't threatening. They never raised their voices or made demands. They just existed in our space, and somehow that was more terrifying than any weapon. The children had spent exactly 47 minutes aboard the Prosperity's Dream. When they left, they took with them nearly 60% of the cargo, not through force or theft, but because the crew had found themselves actively helping to load the items onto the children's small craft. They thanked us, Jorvek whispered in the recording. They said we were super nice and that their mom would be really proud of how helpful we were. The little girl even gave me a drawing she made of our ship. I still have it. The recording ended and the council chamber remained silent for a long moment. This is the pattern, announced Prime Counselor Vorthak. Across 12 systems, 47 separate incidents. Human children, seemingly unaccompanied, approaching various vessels and installations. No violence, no overt threats, yet the results are always the same. Ambassador Zexhai accessed his own files. His intelligence network had been tracking these incidents for months. Each report followed the same impossible logic. Hardened spacers, veteran traders, even military personnel found themselves completely unable to refuse these small humans anything they asked for. The Thexani Mining Consortium reported a similar incident last week, he said, his voice carefully controlled. 3 human children, ages 6 to 11, approached their asteroid mining platform. They were collecting rocks for school. When they left, they had somehow acquired 7 tons of refined dilithium crystals and the complete geological survey data for that entire system. But how? Demanded Counselor Yathara. Our psychologists have studied human biology. Their children shouldn't possess any special abilities. No telepathic powers, no pheromone control, no technological advantages. That's what makes them so terrifying, replied Zexhai. They don't need special powers. They have something far more dangerous. Complete and total innocence combined with an insatiable curiosity about everything around them. The Prime Counselor's eyes dimmed, a sign of deep thought among his species. Our analysts believe they may not even realize what they're doing. This could be completely unconscious behavior, which makes it impossible to defend against, Zexhai concluded. How do you prepare your crew to resist an enemy that doesn't know they're your enemy? How do you harden your heart against beings that radiate pure wonder and joy? As the session continued, Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human children were appearing everywhere, always small groups, always seemingly innocent, always leaving their encounters with far more than they'd arrived with. Trade routes were being disrupted not by pirates or raiders, but by youngsters on adventures. The galaxy's most feared predators, creatures that could tear through battleship hulls and devour entire crews, had learned to flee at the first sign of human children. Ancient warrior races that had conquered countless worlds now posted warnings about small human infiltrators in their most secure facilities. And somewhere in the Terran protected zone, completely unaware of the chaos they were causing throughout galactic civilization, human children continued to dream of adventures among the stars. Dr. Elena Vasquez had no idea that her name was whispered in fear across 17 different star systems. To her, she was simply a xenobiologist aboard the research station New Horizons, trying to understand why her daughter's field trip had caused 3 separate diplomatic incidents. "Mommy, look what we found." 8-year-old Sophia burst into the laboratory, her arms full of what appeared to be glowing crystals. Behind her trailed her 2 best friends, Marcus and Lily, equally excited and carrying similar treasures. Elena looked up from her microscope, where she'd been studying samples of Andromedan algae. "Sophia, honey, where did you get those? And why is your teacher not with you?" "Miss Patterson is talking to some really tall blue people," Sophia said, carefully arranging her crystals on Elena's workbench. "They seemed really scared for some reason. The crystals were just sitting in their ship, and when we asked about them, they gave us these." "Aren't they pretty?" Elena felt a chill run down her spine as she recognized the distinctive blue glow of processed quantum cores, some of the most valuable materials in known space. Each crystal Sophia had casually dumped on her desk was worth more than Elena's annual salary. "The tall blue people were really nice," added Marcus, who at 10 was the oldest of the group. "They showed us their whole ship and explained how everything worked. They even let me help with the navigation computer. I think I accidentally found some new trade routes." Elena's tablet chimed with an urgent message from the station commander. As she read it, her face went pale. The message was the emergency. "Bulletin from the Galactic Trade Commission about a group of human children who had somehow acquired detailed star charts for previously unknown systems and military-grade quantum cores from a Zephyrian diplomatic vessel." "Sophia," Elena said carefully, trying to keep her voice calm, "what exactly did you do on this field trip?" "We just looked around," Lily piped up, her gap-toothed grin infectious. "The blue people's ship was so cool. They had rooms that change color based on your emotions and food that tastes different every time you eat it. When I said I was sad their walls were boring, they gave me these paint tubes that make pictures move." Elena looked at the paint tubes Lily had produced from her backpack. They were Zephyrian memory artist tools, capable of creating 4-dimensional art that could alter perception and emotion. A single tube was worth more than most planetary governments' annual budgets. "The children seem to have a natural ability to make others want to share with them," came a voice from the laboratory entrance. Elena turned to see Commander Reeves, the station's military liaison, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "We've just received a priority communication from Earth. Apparently this isn't the first incident." "What do you mean?" Elena asked, though she was beginning to suspect she didn't want to know the answer. "Your daughter and her friends aren't unique," Commander Reeves explained. "Similar reports have been coming in from all over human space. Children on school trips, family vacations, even just playing in their backyards near spaceports. Somehow they keep encountering alien vessels and returning with items that shouldn't exist outside of military installations or royal treasuries." Sophia tugged on her mother's lab coat. "Mommy, are we in trouble? The blue people seemed really happy to meet us. They kept saying we were absolutely delightful and asking if we wanted to see more things." Elena knelt down to her daughter's eye level. "No, sweetheart, you're not in trouble. But I need to understand exactly what happened." "Can you tell me everything from the beginning?" The story that emerged over the next hour was both innocent and terrifying. The children had been on a routine educational tour of the station's docking bay when a Zephyrian diplomatic vessel had requested emergency repairs. Miss Patterson, their teacher, had tried to keep the children away from the alien visitors, but Sophia had spotted the beautiful blue patterns on the ship's hull and asked if she could draw them. "The tall blue lady came over and said my drawing was beautiful," Sophia explained. "She asked if I wanted to see the real patterns up close. When I said yes, she took us all onto their ship." What followed was a cascade of innocent, Interactions that had somehow resulted in the children being given a guided tour of one of the most technologically advanced vessels in the galaxy. Each question they asked, each expression of wonder or curiosity, had been met with increasingly generous responses from the Zephyrian crew. They kept asking if we wanted to see more, Marcus added. And when we said their technology was cool, they wanted to show us how it worked. When Lily said she wished she could make art like theirs, they gave her the paint things. When Sophia said the crystals were pretty, they gave her a whole bunch. And when I mentioned I liked star maps because they look like connect-the-dots puzzles, they loaded their entire navigation database onto my tablet, Marcus concluded, producing a standard child's learning device that now apparently contained classified military intelligence. Commander Reeves was frantically taking notes. According to our cultural liaison, the Zephyrians are normally extremely protective of their technology. They fought 3 wars rather than share their quantum processing techniques with anyone, yet somehow 3 human children convinced them to hand over their most closely guarded secrets. Elena stood up, her scientific mind racing. There has to be an explanation. Children can't just psychically compel advanced alien species to give them priceless artifacts. Maybe it's not compulsion, suggested Dr. Park, Elena's research partner, who had been quietly observing from the corner. Maybe it's something else entirely. Like what? Elena asked. Think about it from the aliens' perspective, Dr. Park continued. Most species they encounter are adults, competitors, threats, potential enemies. But human children? They represent something most alien species rarely encounter. Pure curiosity without agenda. Elena began to see where he was going. They're not trying to gain advantage or gather intelligence. They're genuinely interested. Exactly. And that genuine interest, that authentic wonder, might be triggering protective and nurturing instincts that evolved separately in dozens of different species. The children aren't manipulating anyone, they're just being children. But the effect on alien psychology is profound. Commander Reeves looked skeptical. You're suggesting that human children are accidentally conducting the most successful infiltration operations in galactic history? I'm suggesting that they're doing something even more powerful, Dr. Park replied. They're making friends. And when someone genuinely likes you, when they're truly interested in what you do and who you are, you want to share with them, you want to make them happy. Sophia had wandered over to Elena's workbench and was now examining a bacterial culture through the microscope. Mommy, these little squiggly things are dancing. Are they happy? Elena looked at her daughter, really looked at her. Sophia's face was lit up with genuine delight at the sight of bacteria moving under magnification. There was no pretense, no hidden agenda, just pure joy at discovering something new. Yes, sweetheart, Elena said softly. I think they are happy. As if to prove the point, Sophia's tablet chimed with an incoming communication. The display showed a Zephyrian face, recognizable as one of the diplomatic crew they'd encountered earlier. Small human Sophia, the alien said. Its blue features arranged in what Elena had learned was their equivalent of a smile. We have arrived at our home system and wanted to share the beautiful views with you. Would you like to see? Within minutes, Sophia and her friends were engaged in a live video tour of the Zephyrian homeworld, with their new alien friends pointing out interesting geological formations and explaining their culture's art forms. The Zephyrians were clearly delighted to have such an enthusiastic audience. Elena watched in amazement as her 8-year-old daughter conducted what amounted to the most successful first contact and cultural exchange in human history, all while asking questions like, why is your sky purple? And do you have ice cream? Commander Reeves received another urgent message on his communicator. After reading it, he looked up with an expression of disbelief. That was from Admiral Harrison. Apparently, the Zephyrian High Council has just extended a formal invitation for Sophia and her friends to visit their homeworld as cultural ambassadors. They're offering to share advanced medical technology in exchange for the privilege of learning from young human wisdom. Elena sat down heavily in her chair. Her daughter was inadvertently reshaping galactic politics, one innocent question at a time. The War Council of the Corvan Empire had never been more divided. General Thaxira paced before the assembled military leaders, her razor-sharp claws clicking against the obsidian floor with each step. The Corvan had conquered 47 worlds through superior tactics and ruthless efficiency, yet they now faced their most perplexing challenge ever. The human infiltration continues, she announced, her voice carrying the growl that struck fear into the hearts of a dozen species. Yesterday, Fortress Base Gamma 7 reported a security breach. 3 small humans somehow penetrated our most secure facility. Admiral Kreshovan, veteran of the Andromedan campaign, leaned forward in his chair. What was stolen? Weapons, battle plans, troop movements? Nothing, General Thaxira replied, and the room fell silent. They took nothing. But somehow, during their 30-minute presence in the facility, they convinced Sergeant Major Vexok to give them a complete tour of our newest stealth technology. The assembled officers exchanged glances of disbelief. Sergeant Major Vexok was known throughout the fleet as incorruptible, a warrior who had resisted torture and interrogation techniques from the most sophisticated enemy intelligence agencies. How old were these infiltrators? Asked Colonel Irathan. The oldest appeared to be 9 standard years, the youngest perhaps 6. General Thaxira activated the holographic display showing security footage from the incident. Watch this. The recording showed 3 human children in colorful clothing walking up to the main gate of Fortress Base Gamma 7. The smallest, a girl with braided hair, approached the guard station with a smile that could have melted the armor plating on a battlecruiser. "Hi," she said in the recording, her voice carrying easily through the translator. "We're on a camping trip with our parents and we saw your really cool building. Is it okay if we look around?" The guard, a battle-hardened Corvan warrior who had never retreated from a fight, looked down at the small human for exactly 3 seconds before his posture completely changed. Within moments, he was kneeling to the child's eye level, explaining the different types of defensive systems while pointing them out with obvious pride. "This is impossible," muttered Admiral Kreshovan. "Our psychological conditioning should prevent this type of response." "It gets worse," General Thaxira continued the playback. The children were now inside the facility, somehow having bypassed 17 different security checkpoints. They moved through corridors lined with weapons that could level mountains, past guards who watched them with what could only be described as protective affection. In the research labs, the children encountered Dr. Morvik, the Empire's leading weapons scientist. He was known for his paranoid secrecy and had once spent 3 months in solitary confinement, rather than reveal his research to enemy interrogators. "What's this do?" asked the boy in the recording, pointing at a prototype stealth generator. "Oh, this is one of my favorite projects," Dr. Morvik replied enthusiastically. "It bends light and energy around objects, making them invisible to most detection methods. Would you like to see how it works?" For the next 15 minutes, the recording showed Dr. Morvik giving the children a complete technical explanation of technology that was classified at the highest levels of the Empire. He demonstrated the device, explained its theoretical foundations, and even let the children operate the controls. "They're wonderful students," Dr. Morvik had noted in his post-incident report. "Such bright minds asking all the right questions. I found myself wanting to share everything I knew with them." "Sir," interrupted Lieutenant Zexai, "with respect, how do we know these aren't sophisticated enemy agents using some form of advanced disguise technology?" General Thaxira switched to another recording. "Because we've tested them. When they left the base, we followed standard protocol and scanned their vessel. The display showed detailed biological scans of the 3 children. They are exactly what they appear to be. Juvenile humans with no technological enhancements, no unusual brain patterns, no hidden weapons or intelligence-gathering devices." "Then how?" demanded Admiral Kreshovan. "Watch this." The recording switched to internal security cameras following the children's path through the base. In every interaction, the same pattern emerged. The children would express genuine interest in something, ask innocent questions, and somehow their enthusiasm would become infectious. When they encountered a group of soldiers training with new combat armor, the children watched with wide-eyed fascination. Within minutes, the soldiers were demonstrating their equipment, explaining tactics and letting the children try on helmets that cost more than most planets' defense budgets. "Look at this part." General Thaxira highlighted a specific interaction. The youngest girl had spotted a wall display showing the Empire's battle honors, ribbons and medals representing centuries of military achievement. "Wow, you must be really brave to get all these," she had said to Captain Morkseth, who had been walking past. The captain, a veteran who had never shown emotion in 20 years of service, actually smiled. Would you like to hear the stories behind them? For the next 10 minutes, Captain Morksith recounted classified military operations, complete with strategic details and troop positions, all because a small human had expressed admiration for his service record. The pattern is consistent across all encounters, General Thaxira explained. The humans express genuine interest and appreciation. Our personnel respond by wanting to share their knowledge and achievements. No coercion, no manipulation that we can detect, just natural social interaction. But this is impossible, Colonel Irathon protested. We've trained our forces to resist the most advanced interrogation techniques. Mental conditioning, psychological barriers, loyalty programming. None of it should fail this completely. That's because it's not failing, came a new voice from the entrance. The assembled officers turned to see Dr. Yinthara, the Empire's chief xenopsychologist, entering the war room. May I present my findings? General Thaxira gestured for her to proceed. I've been studying these incidents across multiple species, Dr. Yinthara began, activating her own holographic display. The Zephyrians, the Altarians, the Thexani, all report similar encounters with human juveniles. In every case, the result is the same. Normally cautious, security-conscious individuals freely sharing their most precious resources. The display showed brain scans from various species during their encounters with human children. What I've discovered is that human children trigger nurturing and protective responses that appear to be hardwired into most sentient species. These responses bypass our logical thinking and activate deeper, more primitive neural pathways. You're saying they're controlling our minds? Admiral Kreshovan asked. No, they're activating instincts we didn't know we had. Most species, when they encounter young of their own kind, experience protective urges. But human children seem to trigger these same responses across species barriers. Their physical features, large eyes, proportionally large heads, high-pitched voices, these are universal markers of youth and vulnerability across dozens of different evolutionary trees. Dr. Yinthara continued her explanation. When a human child expresses interest in something we value, our minds interpret this as a teaching opportunity. We want to nurture their curiosity, to help them learn and grow. It's not mind control, it's a hijacking of our natural educational and protective instincts. Are you saying, General Thaxira asked slowly, that the most effective infiltration agents in galactic history are operating entirely by accident? I'm saying that human children represent something most species have never encountered. Juveniles from a different species that still trigger our nurturing responses. They're not trying to gather intelligence or steal technology. They're just being curious. But that curiosity, combined with their universal appeal to parental instincts, makes them incredibly effective at getting adults to share information. The war room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Corvan Empire, which had built its power on military strength and strategic superiority, was being outmaneuvered by elementary school students who didn't even know they were playing the game. What do you recommend? General Thaxira finally asked. Dr. Yinthara considered her words carefully. Honestly, we should probably try to make friends with them before they accidentally convince someone to give them our entire battle fleet. The recording ended with the 3 human children waving goodbye to the fortress guards, their small transport laden with gifts from their new friends. As their ship disappeared into hyperspace, the children were already excitedly planning their next adventure, completely unaware that they had just acquired enough classified military intelligence to reshape the balance of power in 3 star systems. In the war room of the Corvan Empire, the most feared military leaders in the galaxy sat in stunned silence, realizing they had just been outmaneuvered by opponents who probably still believed in tooth fairies. Captain Sarah Mitchell had been piloting cargo freighters for 15 years, but she had never experienced anything quite like this. Her ship, the Lucky Strike, was currently playing host to what appeared to be the most unusual diplomatic summit in galactic history, and her 9-year-old son Tommy was somehow at the center of it all. "Mom, the spider people are here," Tommy called from the observation deck, his voice filled with excitement rather than fear. Through the viewports, Sarah could see a massive arachnoid dreadnought approaching, a vessel that normally would have sent her reaching for the emergency beacon. "Remember what we talked about, honey," Sarah called back. "They prefer to be called the Vectar Collective." "Right. The Vectar are here," Tommy corrected himself. "And they brought the really big ship this time." Sarah shook her head in amazement. 2 weeks ago, Tommy's innocent question about why spiders in space don't build webs between planets had somehow reached the Vectar Collective through a chain of communications that involved 7 different species. Instead of being offended by what could have been seen as a cultural insult, the Vectar had been fascinated by the concept and requested a meeting with the small human philosopher. Now her cargo bay was serving as a neutral meeting ground for representatives from 12 different species, all of whom wanted to discuss Tommy's various observations about their cultures. What had started as a child's curiosity had evolved into the largest interspecies cultural exchange in recorded history. "Captain Mitchell," came a voice over the comm system. "This is Admiral Kreshevan of the Corvan Empire. We're requesting permission to dock. We brought the requested items for young Tommy." Sarah authorized the docking request while trying to process the situation. 6 months ago, the Corvan Empire had been considered one of the most militaristic and isolationist powers in the galaxy. Now their supreme military commander was personally delivering gifts to her elementary school-age son. Tommy bounded into the bridge, carrying what appeared to be a homework tablet. "Mom, Ambassador HFY says the math problem I was working on yesterday actually solved some kind of trade dispute between 3 different star systems. Can we call Grandpa and tell him I got extra credit for preventing a war?" Before Sarah could respond, her communication system chimed with incoming messages from a dozen different sources. Each one was requesting permission to approach the Lucky Strike to meet with Tommy, bearing gifts and hoping to discuss his latest insights. "Tommy," Sarah said carefully, "what exactly did you say to Ambassador HFY yesterday?" "I just asked why the Altarians and the Thexani didn't trade with each other if they both had things the other needed," Tommy replied, as if this were the most obvious question in the universe. "Like the Altarians have all those pretty energy crystals, and the Thexani have really good food replicators. So I drew a picture showing how they could trade through the Kethmore Empire, and everyone got really excited." Sarah accessed her tablet and reviewed the news feeds. According to the Galactic Trade Commission, Tommy's drawing had inadvertently outlined a trade route that would increase economic prosperity for all 3 civilizations, while reducing shipping costs by 40%. The route utilized previously unknown gravitational currents that Tommy had noticed while watching ships come and go from their home station. "Captain Mitchell," another voice came over the comm, "this is the Thexani trade vessel Golden Prosperity. We have brought the chocolate supplies young Tommy requested, as well as a proposal for formal trade negotiations." Sarah looked at her son. "You negotiated for chocolate?" "Well, they asked what I wanted in return for the trade route idea, and I said chocolate ice cream would be nice," Tommy explained. "But then they started asking about quantities and delivery schedules, and I thought, you might want to talk to them about the grown-up stuff." The cargo bay was filling with representatives from across the galaxy, but Sarah noticed something remarkable in the security feeds. Despite the presence of species that had been enemies for generations, there was no tension, no suspicious glances, no defensive posturing. Everyone was focused on the same goal, making Tommy happy. "Mom, can I show everyone my school project?" Tommy asked. "I made a model of how different species could work together on big construction projects. Like, the Corvan are really good at making strong things, and the Zephyrians are good at making pretty things, and the Vectar are good at organizing complicated stuff." Sarah had seen Tommy's school project. It was a simple diorama showing different alien species working together to build a space station. She had helped him with the papier-mâché and thought it was cute. She had no idea it was apparently a revolutionary approach to interspecies cooperation. "Young Tommy," came an enthusiastic voice as Ambassador HFY entered the bridge, followed by what appeared to be a parade of alien dignitaries. "We have reviewed your construction project proposal, and the Galactic Engineering Council would like to commission you to design the new Deep Space Research Station." "Really?" Tommy's eyes lit up. "Can it have a playground? And maybe a place where the Vectar can practice their web building? And windows big enough for the Altarian flying people to come and go easily?" Sarah watched in amazement as the assembled representatives immediately began discussing how to incorporate these features into what was apparently going to be a multi-billion credit construction project. "Captain," Dr. Yinthara, the Corvan xenopsychologist, approached Sarah quietly. "I've been studying your son's interactions with various species. Has he had any special training in diplomacy or xenocultural studies? He's 9 years old, Sarah replied. His special training consists of being told to clean his room and do his homework. Fascinating, Dr. Yinthara made notes on her tablet. He's solving complex interspecies problems using principles that our most advanced political scientists have been trying to develop for centuries. Yet he appears to be operating purely on intuitive understanding and genuine care for others' well-being. Sarah observed her son, who was now sitting cross-legged on the floor surrounded by alien dignitaries, drawing pictures and explaining his ideas with the kind of enthusiasm most children reserved for their favorite video games. He asked each species about what they were good at, what they needed, and what would make them happy, then found ways to connect these elements. Tommy, why don't you think it's strange that all these different aliens can work together? Sarah asked. Why would it be strange? Tommy looked up from his drawing. They're all nice and they all want good things. Like the Corvin want to protect people, and the Zephyrians want to make beautiful things, and the Vectar want everything to be organized and work properly. Those are all good things. Admiral Kreshevan, the supreme military commander of one of the galaxy's most feared empires, nodded seriously. The small human speaks wisdom. Perhaps our differences in appearance and culture have blinded us to our common goals. Plus, Tommy added, everyone's really interesting. The Vectar can make patterns with their webs that tell stories, and the Altarians can change colors to show their feelings, and the Corvin know so much about making things that last forever. Why wouldn't you want to be friends with people who know cool stuff like that? Sarah realized that her son had accidentally identified something that generations of diplomats had missed. Instead of focusing on differences and potential conflicts, Tommy simply assumed that everyone had interesting qualities worth appreciating and learning from. Mom, can we invite everyone for dinner? Tommy asked. I want to learn how to make Thexani honey cakes, and Ambassador Zexai promised to teach me to count in Kethmore numbers. As Sarah looked around at the assembly of alien representatives, all of whom were nodding enthusiastically at the prospect of a dinner party hosted by a 9-year-old, she realized that her son had accomplished something remarkable. Not through advanced political science or careful negotiation, but through the simple assumption that interesting people from different places should be friends. The galactic community's most feared predators and warriors were eagerly planning a potluck dinner, all because a child had asked them to share what they were proud of and found ways to help them do it together. Sure, honey, Sarah said, but you're helping with the dishes. Tommy grinned and went back to his drawings, completely unaware that he was designing the framework for the most successful interspecies alliance in galactic history.